start recording. All right, and 3, 2, and 1. All right, and welcome back to the Reserve Squad Midweek show. Hell, that was a pretty good display of football, I'll say. I thought the first week was kind of lacking, to be honest. But man, Saturday and Sunday really did keep us entertained, and frankly, I needed that because I didn't really have the best week. I had a bit of a headache issue, and well, I'm wearing a hat today, and it's because I did not have the best trip at the barbershop. We'll put it that way. But everything was great except for yesterday. But I mean, even yesterday had some storylines. So now I'm excited to get to talk about it, and I'm sure the person I'm joined with is as well. And Rex, I know you're excited to talk about a little bit what happened with Arsenal. But I mean, do you share my feelings? Did you think like I thought the first week was kind of a little. I mean, it was nice to see the Premier League return, but this week I thought really came out with a bang. So, what were you thinking about that?
Yeah, the matches were really free flowing in comparison to last week. But last week I looked actually had two more goals, 28 goals last week, 26 goals this week.
Hmm.
And then the 2-0 were kind of boring, so I kind of threw those games out. But yeah, I think the TV schedule too for me was a lot better. They actually had games on USA and Peacock, so I could easily just switch between my PS4 on Peacock and then go to USA. And I think there's like one game, two games on TV last week,
Yeah, that's a
and
good
now
shout.
much more so. Yeah, it was a lot better viewing experience and more used to what we see on like NBC Sports or whatever. So
Hmm.
yeah, it was a good weekend. A lot of free flowing football. Just hopefully you didn't watch the 0-0 games because those were pretty dull.
Well, one of them had a PK save, but I kind of
Oh yeah,
share.
true.
I kind of share your thoughts about it. Just the entertainment from like the Chelsea or just the Conte Tuchel thing was good enough for me. But
Mhm.
I don't know. Let's kind of do what we did last week. We'll start with like a headlines or like a top story, and then just kind of really dive into the games. So I guess I'll get started. I mean, for me, this is kind of lame, but I think like home field advantage really has returned. I looked and really not a single team that played at home uh, lost. I mean, a few drop points like Liverpool yesterday had a draw. Chelsea had a draw. But it just seemed just the crowds were awesome, and I don't know if it's I still remember like COVID football and how different that was, but just I think the game that really shined was how much different Nottingham Forest was versus Newcastle versus like
Mhm.
this week versus West Ham. Just that whole crowd was raucous the entire time, and yeah, I just really enjoyed that. So I'll go with that.
Ooh, I like that. I'm gonna go with, I guess, really the Conte Tuchel handshake and all that. Celebrating in front of each other when the team scores and all that. I really enjoyed it. I also liked the game too. The game, it had times where it wasn't great, but then it had times where it was like, just you couldn't take your eyes off of it.
Yeah,
So I'm gonna go with the Tuchel and the Conte rivalry kind of butting up, and it seems like we have a couple of these coach rivalries starting to pop up again. It's kind of hard when managers are only there like a year and then they're out. It's kind of hard to build up these rivalries, but
hmm
looks like we're adding another one to it. So I'm looking forward to that, seeing them clash some more down the line, hopefully.
yeah, and just I mean, we'll definitely we're about to dive into it now. But personally, it was little. It was nice, kind of to see a little something different than like the Klopp and Pep, buddy hugs that we
Mhm.
sometimes see, like the passive aggressive stuff
Mhm.
we always see. So I mean, that was just the handshake alone was amazing. Um, but yeah, we'll just get started with that game. Chelsea and Spurs. It ends 2-2. I mean, the first goal comes from Koulibaly. It's an awesome volley, and then just out of nowhere, Højbjerg gets a goal to get the Spurs level. There's a little controversy in the goal we'll get into, and then Chelsea again take the lead with Reece James, and then at the very end, Kane has a header on a corner kick that is also quite controversial. But I think you kind of led on a little bit. I mean, this game had everything. It had drama. It had great goals. I mean, the Koulibaly and Højbjerg hits were very nice. Late goals. Just the coaches being completely like the way both were celebrating at each other after each goal. That was great. So I don't know. We'll kind of get started. Who do you think is maybe happier of the two teams here?
I think Tuchel is the happier of the two, just because. I think you kind of agree. This was kind of a statement match
Hmm.
for Conte and Tottenham, kind of a match to say, hey, we're going to lay down a marker this year. We're going to beat, our top four rivals. So I think they really saw this as an opportunity to do that, kind of stamp their authority early on the Premier League. And I think they kind of viewed it as a opportunity to get a win versus a Chelsea team that might end up picking up a striker in the next 2 weeks. So
Hmm.
I think Tuchel will be the happier of the two. But I don't think Tuchel's too happy, especially with the refereeing after that game. He was pretty critical. I honestly wonder if he'll get fined for any of it. But I think Tuchel will be slightly happier, but still probably not happy.
Yeah, and I guess the devil's advocate is Spurs were completely outplayed, and sometimes I guess in the past maybe this would have been a game that Spurs would have laid down, but showed some grit, and getting out of Stamford Bridge with a draw is never a bad result. So, but I kind of agree that this really was a statement win or game really for both teams. It there's this Tuchel and Conte rivalry that they feel like they kind of see each other as their own main rival, but maybe these like clubs do as well. Um, you know, we did a show a couple weeks ago where we predicted a top four. We were kind of in between Chelsea and Spurs for maybe that fourth,
Yep.
and I think maybe both kind of feel they've been disrespected. They feel that they can both maybe push for more.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we saw a little of that on the field as well. But we'll I feel like we should get started with Chelsea first, and we'll maybe start with how they lined up because it was a little different. Tuchel lined up with Reece James as the right center back. I mean, we've been talking about them maybe to go get someone for that. They've been linked to Fofana, but I mean James at center back was excellent, and he played Ruben Loftus-Cheek as a wing back instead. And I think what it was done to do is it was supposed to take Son out of the game, and we've seen Tuchel do this before with Chelsea. I remember back to when Chelsea played Real Madrid in the Champions League. He did kind of the same thing to take Vinicius Jr. out, and that worked pretty much the entire 90 minutes of that game. And then when it got to extra time, the one time Vinny was able to get free, he was able to find Benza, and that was really the crucial goal for that game. Uh, but he also played Koulibaly and Cucurella on the other side. So like the way Spurs like to basically get the ball to Kane, and Kane likes to get the ball kind of out wide to the two wingers. Chelsea basically kind of countered that or set up to basically block that, and you saw Spurs really struggle with that. So it was a really good job by Tuchel in that respect. Um, we kind of mentioned it before, but I'm starting to wonder if maybe another thing about it is both coaches have tried to make maybe back three systems kind of their own thing. So I
Yeah.
don't know if maybe Tuchel and Conte kind of have a slight of each other about that. But yeah, I mean the reactions after the game and even during the goals was excellent.
Yeah, it was. It was awesome.
But I mean, I think you agree with me. Like the majority of the game, I did feel like Chelsea were maybe superior, pretty much in every respect. The Spurs were struggling to really build up play and keep possession, where Chelsea were able to. It seemed Chelsea almost had like an extra man on the field at all times. There was never really any spaces. There was like maybe one time when Chelsea were really caught. It was when Sessegnon was able to get free. I think it was on like a free kick too. Uh, and we didn't really see Kane being able to be that influential, at least in that first half. And we didn't really see Son or Kulusevski either, where on the flip side, Chelsea had no issues getting Sterling and Mount, touches in the final third. And I think it was because, Conte and Jorginho were much better at getting the ball in the middle than Betancourt and Højbjerg. So, yeah, Chelsea did impress me in really everything in the end product. I think that's what you were kind of talking about. So I'll kind of throw the ball to you. I mean, what were you thinking? What do you think of Chelsea at the moment?
I really think Chelsea. I mean, I think you agree. They need a striker. They got rid of Werner,
Mhm.
which kind of might signal to me that they are going to bring in a striker. It looks like maybe a Aubameyang, maybe if they can figure out the price tag. But I mean, like we talked about this, you and I earlier. It's really hard now. You got 2 weeks left about in the transfer market. It's really hard to bring in like a good quality striker. So they really do have their work cut out. But watching the game, I just thought they really needed a striker because, like you said, they did dominate the game at times. But I think in the final third, they just needed something else in there. I think Sterling and Havertz, the front two, kind of if they went wide, it kind of allowed Mason Mount kind of to be the number 10
Mhm.
and kind of push through the gap. But which is, I mean, that's a good strategy too. But they can't really mix anything up right now if they don't have a striker, you know. So I do think this game kind of proved to me that they need a striker, and I think Tuchel will probably be going after one for sure. Other than that, though, I agree with you. James was really good, and that was a surprise move, seeing him in the back three. And I thought Koulibaly was excellent as well. Cucurella was good. He got an assist on a overhit. It's kind of an overhit corner, but he got the assist to Koulibaly. So some of those new signings are hitting the ground running.
Yep.
But I still think they need a striker.
Yeah, and well, I guess we should kind of get into Havertz a little bit because Havertz had a pretty good game, to be honest, in everything but the finishing.
Mhm.
Like one of the reasons maybe it felt like Chelsea had almost an extra man in the field is Havertz was pretty good at linking up. He didn't necessarily lose the ball when he did kind of show for it, and he did find himself in good positions a lot of times. There was a moment in the first half where Chelsea had have so many like really good passing. They were able to get Sterling free in the box, and Sterling basically does like a backheel pass to Havertz, and Havertz has a good shot. It forces a good save, and then in the second half, Reece James had a really nice cross into Havertz, and he gets a lot of power on the shot, but I think he doesn't really try to get his laces through it. He tries to maybe almost pass it in, and it goes wide. But those are the kind of moments where you really do miss a finisher because that would have probably killed the game. Had at least that Reece James assist or semi assist almost happened. Another thing that noticed is it was really interesting how Tuchel normally plays with like a 3-4-3 formation, or really it's it's a back three with two in midfield, wing backs, and then almost like two tens and one striker. And instead, he played almost like a 3-5-2. So Sterling and Havertz were together, but what it also allowed is it had three in midfield, and you had three basically versus two. And I really think that congestion really hurt Spurs in a way that just Conte wasn't prepared for. And so
Maybe how they're able to shut down Son too in this game.
Mhm. Yeah, and so we do have to get to the goals they conceded because I think we both agree there were maybe clear and obvious fouls or errors
Yeah.
on both. Havertz gets his ankle. It looks like I mean it's from behind. It's close. You can maybe argue it's 50-50. From one angle, it definitely looks like he goes through the player. On another angle, maybe he does get the ball slightly. But
Slightly, yeah, slight touch.
I don't know about you. My issue, because this happened like 50 seconds before the goal, Chelsea had a number of chances to prevent this from happening. Jorginho has the ball in the box and he tries to do something cheeky and he loses it. That plays a part too. But on the shot, I think Richarlison is offsides and it blocks the keeper's sight. And I was
Mhm.
kind of shocked they didn't look at that because
Mhm.
you're looking at something at VAR with VAR that really happened. I want to say 50 seconds or so before that, when instead you should have looked at what happened immediately. Um,
That's a
and
good point.
then on the second goal, this is really weird because I don't necessarily fault. Well, another thing too is maybe the ref. I mean, that's a hard decision for the ref to make. But where's the line judge help? I was kind of
True.
shocked about that.
Yeah.
And then on the corner kick, I mean, Taylor, I think, is looking to basically where the congestion is, where Kane is. People are like, oh, it's happening right in front of him. But when you look, he's probably looking at the ball and looking elsewhere. So again, this could have been where line help could have helped out. And the reason why Chelsea weren't able to get a free kick on this is because VAR was looking for a red card. It wasn't looking for a foul. VAR can't just call a foul when a foul wasn't necessarily
Right.
called.
Yeah.
And to be honest, uh, but what they looked at, I think we both agree, would maybe constitute. It's called like violent conduct. Uh,
Mhm.
it's you're yanking hair down. That I think that fits the bill. So
Yeah, that's definitely a red card. It
I
has
think
to.
Chelsea are right to maybe feel aggrieved.
Yeah, I think
There.
so. And Tuchel too. Tuchel was angry about it in the post game too. So I mean, you can't pull someone down by the hair. That's a red card all day.
Hmm. And so we kind of talked about it a little bit. Chelsea have to feel somewhat pretty good with where they're at. But I think we both agree there may be a signing or two Sure. You mentioned striker. I agree. But maybe in midfield as well. Conte looked like he maybe pulled his hamstring in that second half.
Yeah,
They tried playing Reece
I think we'll
James.
know today the extent of that hamstring.
I mean, they said they tried shifting Ruben Loftus-Cheek back into midfield after that, and they brought on Colin Gallagher. So
Hmm.
I'm curious if maybe there's something in the cards for Conor Gallagher to
I
at
hope
least
so. Yeah,
have this role, and if not, they are
have
linked.
a chance to start.
If not, they are linked to Frankie De Jong, so that would probably be where he would fit in. There's still no Kovacic, so if Conte is out for a long stretch, that could hurt them a little bit because he was excellent.
Yeah.
And
Oh yeah, he covers so much ground.
personally, I want to see Broja. I want to see Broja get some game time. I
Yeah, I
don't
agree.
necessarily know if he can work with Havertz or maybe Broja would be better with Sterling, but I feel if you're not going to use him, give him to Everton or give him West Ham. I think we're linked. I'd like to see him on a team again because I think he's too good to be on the bench. So
Yeah, he scored 6 goals for Southampton and last year, and Southampton really, doesn't score that much. So it's a big chunk of goals that he scored for Southampton last year. So I agree. I'd like to see him play a little bit more. He's come off the bench the last 2 games, but I think like most strikers, he probably needs much more game minutes to actually make an impact for Chelsea.
hmm and one thing I want to say is there are like weirdly linked to like Anthony Gordon. I think I saw of Everton.
Yeah.
I think they even put a bid, and
Mhm.
I saw a lot of people online kind of like wondering what in the world is this about. I rewatched the game, or at least we watched a little highlights, at least in that second half. And if there was maybe a critique, when Ruben Loftus-Cheek did get into pretty good areas, he didn't have the best final ball or final touch. And so maybe if the idea is to upgrade on Ruben Loftus-Cheek and maybe play someone like Gordon, who's maybe more offensive-minded and gifted in that spot. I don't necessarily know if Gordon has a lot defensively, but if the idea is maybe to play Reece James in this right center back role a little bit more and to play maybe Gordon at wing back, that probably would work. So I guess I could see that. So
He's been playing striker for Everton right now because they don't have anyone. So interesting.
yeah, him making a move would be good for him. I think so. That's I guess that's a bit about Chelsea. Let's get on to Spurs though. The stats really aren't that kind to them, to be honest. I mean, it's 492
Yeah.
to 250 in completed passes. But Spurs did actually create more chances. So I think if you're Conte, you really did steal a point here. And again, getting anything away to Stamford Bridge is not a bad result. But I mean, were you like me, Rex? Did you see that their struggles to get the ball upfield? Uh, do you think that's a problem they need to address, or do you just think it was an off day for them?
I think it was just an off day for them. Well, I don't know. I mean, the way Chelsea took out Son, that for me really made it a difficult thing to move that ball up,
Mhm.
transition from midfield to attack or defense to attack even. So I'm hoping. I mean, hoping it's just one game, but at the same time, I think other teams and coaches will be looking at how Chelsea were able to shut out Son, and they'll be trying to employ the same strategy, kind of, and be like, okay, we're gonna make Kane and Kulusevski beat you, which is hard to do too, because I mean they also have Richarlison off the bench, so I think Conte will figure out some ways to mix and match the team, kind of get the ball moving in transition better, and try to free up Son because I really was expecting a good game from Son, and he was really shut up. I didn't really see much of him in this game, so I think other teams will try to copy that for sure. So Conte's got to figure out how to get everyone working, how to get everyone open, and maybe he has Richarlison that he can use and some other players. So it'll be interesting to see, but I do think other teams will try to copy what Chelsea did.
Yeah, and maybe Conte finally figured it out because he actually did play Richarlison with Kane together in that second half. He took Emerson Royal off and basically moved Kulishevsky to almost like their wingback to keep the width. Um, but what that happened is instead, like Harry Kane just he drops back and plays deep. We mentioned that last week, and
Mhm.
he's really their playmaker at times. He's their outlet. But it made it really easy for Chelsea's back line to not have to really worry about him because, like you said, the outlets were Son and Kulishevsky, and they just weren't able to get the ball to them enough. In that second half, you had with Charleston, and Richarlison at least forced Koulibaly to like look at him, and it was like the one time they were able to find Kane basically making a back shoulder run. Wasn't that second half, and it was because Koulibaly was more worried about Richarlison, and Kane actually was 3 on goal, and surprisingly, hit a shot wide. But I think we might see a little bit more of that than maybe I was expecting. I was thinking maybe Richarlison would uh, either play for Kulishevsky or
Uh,
maybe play in Kane's stead. It
uh,
looks like they might need to play him and Kane together in some respects.
I would like that. It'd be a good combination of like size from Kane and speed from Richarlison. I think that could work.
And this is another. I mean, this is one of those games where it's super intensity. Chelsea were pressing like nonstop. It required basically it required physicality in the middle of the field. Basuma would have been a good person to play this game. I think maybe it's too
Uh,
early for him. I think if this game
yeah.
would have been played in March or April, Basuma would have started over Hoiberg or Betancourt. So that'll maybe be something to see. But it does feel like they are missing. They don't have like Jorginho, someone that'll that's like a deep lying playmaker or whatever passer that can just progress, keep the ball and move it upfield. They didn't necessarily have that, and so yeah, you said the outlets were to Son and Kane or Son and Kulishevsky out wide, and they just couldn't get the ball to them. So
It also seems like they just don't have a number 10 in midfield. I
right,
mean,
yes,
Betancourt, Hoiberg, and Basuma are all kind of, eights or sixes. And it seems like sometimes they do need a number 10, which they don't really have unless,
which is
you could pull Son back and put Richarlison where Son is maybe or something.
well,
But so that'll be interesting.
I think that was another thing too. When Richarlison, another thing that Richarlison did is because he was still able to offer that threat. It maybe allows someone like Son to come deeper and to come into pockets.
Uh,
But I agree. Like this is one reason why I was really shocked they weren't seriously in contention or trying for Ericsson because it feels like Ericsson would fit this mold. You wouldn't necessarily have to play him every game, but bring
uh,
him on in the 65 minutes. You have 5 subs this year, and we haven't really
yeah.
seen a lot of teams yet understand that you have 5 subs to change a game yet. I
Uh,
haven't seen teams have like players designated for like certain situations yet. I
uh,
was kind of expecting that, but honestly, we talked about both these teams. I feel like this draw is perfect for a team like Arsenal, to be honest. So,
yeah. Yeah,
if
definitely.
I feel like you and or I guess Arteta definitely has his sights, maybe more on top four. But I mean, just as you as a fan, do you maybe does this game maybe change your thinking? Do you see maybe Spurs as your biggest competition still, or did Chelsea kind of come back into your mind?
Um, well, I think, yeah, I think these two teams are probably, in the top four. They're the two closest teams to Arsenal in terms of talent. Because I mean, like I keep saying, I think City and Liverpool are just a cut above. So I do think like the other three, maybe even throw West Ham in there.
Mhm.
They're all, yeah, they're all kind of the same in a way. Trying to figure out their image and the way they play. But I don't know. I mean, I think honestly, both Chelsea and Tottenham are going to be really tough for Arsenal. I think they're going to be tough for anyone to play. Um, but I mean, that being said, it looks like Arsenal's attack looks a little bit better than Chelsea for sure. Maybe a little bit better than Tottenham, and Arsenal's defense is looking solid too. But I do think they're going to be tough outs. All these teams are going to be hard, and that's what you get. When you play teams in the top four, it's going to be a hard match, and that's why I do think Conte really wanted to kind of put his stamp on this game and come away with a top four win, and so early in the season, just to kind of build off of. But I think Arsenal might end up drawing both of these teams, maybe squeaking out a win. I think it's all going to be really tight competitions when they play each other,
Mhm.
and
I
it's
mean,
like the North London derby kind of thing. They're always tough.
like you said, it's just the second week of the season, and this game could have been like an FA final. The
Mhm.
way just the crowd and everyone was reacting, it was wild. Uh, but it's great stuff. And then at least for entertainment value or I'll say trolling value, the next game we're
Uh-huh.
going to talk about was equally as good, even though it wasn't
Oh
it
yeah.
wasn't as great on the eye. And we'll go with Brentford and Man United. Brentford get the shock result of 4-0. And I labeled it the Christian Eriksen Derby to kind of when I was doing the script in the first time, but I'm going to maybe call it the David De Gea retirement game. So that's
Ooh.
kind of foreshadowing a little bit. And what I'm going to
Yeah.
do is I'm actually going to go over every goal because I feel like basically the goals tell the story of what happened. So it starts off with De Silva. I mean, it's a De Gea spill. I mean that is what it is. But what it does is it kind of tells the story of the game because in the lead up to this, United try basically a short goal kick and they give the ball to Maguire and Brentford immediately press him and Maguire freaks out and can't get rid of the ball or anything. And basically Brentford pen him back and it's just a throw in. It's a United throw in. But they try to get the ball to Ronaldo. Ronaldo is double marked, immediately loses the ball because Brentford basically have just crowded that whole space. They were not worried at all about United going long or finding any kind of outlet. They were quite comfortable at pressing as high as possible. And like I said,
Mm.
this shows up in pretty much every goal. Uh, and De Silva has a crack at, and it sleeps under De Gea's arms. But I'm not. If
Yeah.
I'm United, I'm not necessarily that worried about that goal. I am worried about the second one. Um, so again, I don't understand why De Gea is not taking goal kicks, and I haven't looked online or anything yet, or I haven't found this online. I'm wondering if he's playing with an injury because we saw this last week with Brighton too. I remember I mentioned how it was weird when they were trying to show a replay after Brighton like had a header, and it immediately went to a goal kick, and all of a sudden De Gea had the ball because someone had kicked it short to De Gea. It wasn't De Gea kicking it,
Mm.
uh,
Weird.
that was when he went long, and basically that's how Brighton got their first goal. It almost happened again here. Like the Martinez is the one taking their goal kicks, and immediately Brentford see the pressure, and De Gea tries to get this ball to Ericsson. It makes no sense to do this because Jensen is
Mhm.
right over him. Another reason why it
Yeah.
doesn't make sense to do this is because 90 seconds before this, they tried to do the same thing. I think Maguire was on the ball, and he tried to get the ball to Aronson when like Dallow was open. Also, Dallow was like more upfield. He should have been closer to Maguire to give him an outlet. But it seemed
Mm.
just the only person on quality with the ball was Ericsson, and United knew this, and Brentford knew this, and it was almost a disaster then. Jensen also got the ball off Ericsson, and it led, Maguire basically went to ground, and it could have been a red card. Um, I was kind of, I guess maybe Martinez or there was another defender, I guess, in the area. But I mean, it was calamitous there. So Jensen wins the ball, and does a nice drag back, and De Gea basically passes the ball to Brentford, and then even on the third goal, it has nothing to do with pressing, but it is something that you brought up last week. You wondered if Martinez was fit to play center back, and he's not. This is not necessarily an issue with him playing center back because it's a goal kick, or it's a corner kick. He's on the back post. If he was playing at left back or he was playing CDM, he would also be on the back post, but he's playing instead of Varane. And I don't think this goal happens if Varane is playing over Martinez because Tony just gets the ball, he heads it across goal, and frankly, Martinez is bullied by Ben Mee. He almost like
Yeah.
slips too, um, and
And Ben
then
Mee's just got that huge height advantage on him.
right, and then I don't. They say he's 5'9". I don't think so. Um,
Could be like 5'7".
he might do what I do. I get 5'9" on my driver's license too, even though it's a wink. Um, what's that saying? The only two height in the world. It's 5'9" and 6 feet. Anyways,
Yeah.
um, but I mean, the fourth goal is worth talking about as well because I think it's the best goal of the lot. It's like the actual football goal, and Jensen again is the star of the show because Jensen gets the ball. I think off like Sancho. He then evades or avoids someone, so he's got good feet to get away, and he hits a perfect
Mhm.
ball to Tony. And the reason why it's perfect is it's got the right amount of weight for Tony to like look up and to see what's ahead of him. He lets the ball bounce. He doesn't even try to control it. And with his first touch is to send the ball into Mbembe's path. And basically from four touches to Jensen getting the ball first, De Gea's getting the ball out of his net. So the two things I saw here is I, United are losing 3-0 at like 25 minutes. So I'm guessing that's the reason why Harry Maguire and Luke Shaw are so high upfield. Uh,
Yeah.
because there's no real explanation for this. It's wonderful by Embremo, and maybe De Gea could have tried to come out, but that's probably being harsh. But this is just it was just Brentford, I guess, like knew what they wanted to do, where United didn't. And I guess we'll kind of get started there. I mean, once again, everyone is going to spend their time talking about United and ripping them. I think we are too. But and Brentford, I do think we should talk about the team that won the game. And Brentford winning the game 4-0, maybe could happen. Maybe it's a possibility. I mean, they beat Chelsea 4-1 last year with Ericsson, but still. But for it to be that score after 33 minutes, I mean that's what was eye popping. So I don't know. I'm kind of rambling a little bit. I wanted to get the goals out. But what did you see Brentford doing that caused so much chaos?
Well, yeah, I think you kind of mentioned it. Brentford have a team identity, and Manchester United don't. And I think it's because Manchester United have had three coaches in a year, so it's kind of hard to establish a way you're going to play or try to play every game when the coach is changing that much. So obviously Frank has been there for a couple years for Brentford, and their identity for this game was press, press, press. We're going to press Maguire because he's slow. We're going to target Martinez in the air because he's short. I mean, it was pretty easy game strategy, I think. And the relationship that Tony and Mbumo have, I feel like could kind of be the Kane Richarlison relationship
Mm.
if they went that route. I feel like. But yeah, I mean, from Brentford, it was from the opening whistle, press, 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 and they press really well together as a team. They're good on the break because you do have Mbumo's speed. And then I thought Jensen was amazing this game, and he's gotten some stick from the fans last year for some iffy performances.
Mm.
But so far, he's been really good this season. And losing Ericsson, they're going to need him to step up. And De Silva too has stepped up. He's got 2 goals in 2 games, and we know what we have in Norgard too. He's great in midfield too. So I think Brentford have that team identity. United are still kind of struggling to find that, and I think they will eventually, but it's going to take some time. I think Ten Hag's going to have to get rid of some of these players that have huge salaries, so it's going to be hard to get rid of. Like Ronaldo doesn't want to be there, so
Mm-hmm.
that's going to cast a shadow in the locker room if someone's playing and they don't want to be there. But again, it's going to be really hard to offload him. I mean, he's getting a lot of money a week, and it's kind of the same with like Maguire too. So just they don't have an identity, and Brentford really do, and they had a really good game plan. And it kind of seemed like United really didn't have a game plan. They didn't have a strategy to cope with the press.
Yeah, and another thing. So like one thing that happened, uh, I guess like last week is I mentioned how Brentford were trying a new formation. They were trying basically a 4-3-3, and they like moved to this formation. I guess last year with Ericsson. But before that, Jeremy was telling me that Thomas Frank didn't really like to change formations that much. But we immediately saw something new. We saw basically the same thing that Chelsea went with. We saw basically a 3-5-2. So it was De Silva, Jensen, and Norgard in midfield. And like you said, it completely again it felt like United were playing down a man at times. I actually don't really like back threes because I don't really like that 3-4-3 formation. But
Right.
this idea gives you 3 in midfield. I mean, the whole like reading Klopp's book or whatever, he talks about he doesn't like playing like a 4-2 he doesn't 4-2-3-1, or he doesn't like doing a 4-4-2 because he doesn't like 2 in midfield. He feels like that you can't win second balls that way. You can't press that way.
Yeah, because the
So
other team's going to play 3.
yeah, and so I think that was interesting because basically what he did is he played Da Silva and left Wisa off the bench. But
Mhm.
another thing that Jeremy said is he was actually looking at both starting 11s, and he was like, I honestly don't think the squad or the talent gap is that different between these two sides.
Mhm.
He mentioned a few players, and I fully agree. I mean, one that definitely shows up in Norgard. Norgard is a
Yeah.
player that I feel like United should have maybe targeted, not Christian Eriksen,
Mhm.
to be honest, because
Yeah.
Norgard
Yeah, I
is a
agree.
number 6 and he can handle a press. He's maybe not
Mhm.
not the sexiest name, but United have not had a defensive midfielder for like God knows how long, and that's been an issue for them. Pretty
Yeah,
much
that's
this
another.
entire
Yeah,
time.
yeah, it's another issue because Fred is kind of hit or miss. McTominay, same. Matic they got rid of to Roma. So yeah, that's another big problem point for him. And Norgard would have been that deep line playmaker. Good ball ability over the top too. So good point.
And like I know United were actually linked to Tony sometime early in the summer. And
Hmm.
I know online people were kind of laughing at it, but this is a game that showed you. I mean, Tony's got some Harry Kane in him. To be
Yeah,
honest, he can play
yeah,
make, but he also can make runs in behind. And the easiest one I think is Raya. I mean, I would
Yeah.
if I was doing a squad, I would pick Raya over the basically the highest paid keeper in all of Europe, which I was like stunned to find out about that.
Yeah. So if you're the Spain manager, you're probably like, I think my two goalies would be Raya and Sanchez from Brighton, because both of them have started amazing and kind of kicked De Gea to the curb.
Yeah, I didn't realize De Gea is still there, still Spain's keeper.
I
That
guess. Yeah.
that would be interesting. Yeah, I know Jeremy doesn't like people talking up Raya.
Yeah.
He is 6 feet, but he was like, the more people talk about him, he thinks Brentford would lose him. Um,
Yeah.
but another thing I want to say, and then we can get into United is, I do think this is an example of how much the game has changed. I don't think I said 6 or 7 years ago, and I'm looking back at like Pochettino's Southampton. I guess was a team that pressed a lot.
Hmm.
But I want to say maybe 8 years ago, a small team like Brentford, I'll say small in quotes, I don't think would have played this way. I think they would have had someone like Sam Allardyce as like their manager, or like Tony Pulis. Like it's
Yeah. Then
like one of the problems is every team like understands you need to be able to press this way. You need to be organized, but you need to understand how to high press and how to go after the ball, how to win second duels. And there really is one team how to basically run. And there's really one team over the years that hasn't adapted to this change, and I think that's where we're going to get to. You mentioned Leeds. Leeds is a great example as well. But it is Man United, and the point I want to make is I remember when Klopp took over for Liverpool. Uh, without changing any players, I don't think he even changed the system. Liverpool went from basically averaging about 105 kilometers to they outran Spurs. They played Spurs in like the first game. Uh, they ran 115 that day. It was the first time all year the Spurs had been basically outrun, or they covered more distance.
yeah.
And the one thing that's an issue if you're a United fan is I feel like Ten Hag or wants to play this way. I feel like Ralph Ragnick wants to play this way, and so far I
Mhm.
haven't seen United play differently. I haven't seen them running more, um,
Mhm.
and so I mean, what do you have any thoughts on that, or do you want to?
Well, yeah, I completely agree. But when I look at the lineup, I'm like, I don't think Ronaldo is going to work hard off ball. He's not going to press per se.
Yes,
Fernandez, Sancho, maybe Rashford aren't going to really work hard and press. And you mentioned it. They Brentford outran United by 13 kilometers, which is a shit ton for one
that's
game.
amazing.
And apparently, United was supposed to have the day off after the game, and Ten Hag had a really hard practice and made the team run 13 kilometers. Since that's how much more Brentford outworked them. So I think Ten Hag is going to get it straight. I just don't know how long it's going to take, and if they're going to give him time, and if the financial backing is going to be there. Um, but yeah, I mean, they don't have the players. I feel like don't have that the urge or desire to press. It's mainly like I just feel like a lot of them want individual glory. Like Ronaldo wants to score goals, Fernandez wants to score goals.
Yes.
They don't necessarily care about the team per se. And if you're gonna press, you're gonna have to work hard and maybe not touch the ball. You might force a turnover and someone else might get it and score. And you have to be happy with that. You have to be happy with just winning the game, maybe not scoring all the time.
Well, another thing too, because I one thing to say about Bruno is I remember him. Bruno's actually a good presser. At least he has a good work rate on him. But the problem is I remember last year he was going alone. You
Mhm.
can't go alone because then you open yourselves up. So like it has to be a team thing. It has to be
The team,
organized, which is what we've
yeah.
talked about. But I mean, let's kind of go with the lineup and formation because I think this kind of played a role too. So Ten Hag he tried Ericsson as almost like a false nine last week. He played Ericsson kind of deeper in that second half, and maybe he saw something to do that again. So he tried Ericsson and Fred together in almost like a holding midfield pivot role. Ronaldo at striker, Rashford. Ronaldo wasn't able to play for Brighton at least the first half. Rashford, Sancho on the wings, and then Bruno 10. So it's really nothing different that we haven't seen for the last couple of years. They're setting up to they I guess they understand they're not going to have the ball, but maybe they can hit people on breaks, which is weird for a team like United to play that way. But I mean
Mhm.
that's what Ali Ball got them to like second place one year, and they don't they haven't really
Yeah,
moved. They haven't really moved
they
from
have the
that.
speed to counter well. So you think that would work?
Hmm. But I mean, I don't think it's the best place to play Ericsson. To be honest, like one, Ericsson and Fred, people know you're not going to give Fred the ball because he got such a heavy touch. So it's easy to mark Christian Eriksen out of the game, which is what they did. They dared
Mhm.
United to pass Ericsson the ball, and United obliged. So like, and we mentioned, they're missing a number six, holding a defensive midfielder, like someone that would sit deep, that would link up between the defense and midfield. Someone that would be someone that would be good at basically closing gaps, but also be good on the ball, be good, be an outlet essentially. They don't have that.
Yeah, because you can't lose the ball, as a defensive mid like Fred tends to do.
Yeah, and so we've mentioned De Gea. I mean, what maybe could United have done differently here, in your opinion? Because I've seen a lot of people say that this will take $300 million. This will take 5 years.
Ooh.
I personally don't. Maybe to like challenge for a title, sure, but to get them playing better, I don't. I think there are solutions that he could do right now. So let's see what you have to say.
Well, I don't want to. I'll leave the formation change because I know you're going to talk about that, so I'll leave that out. But I'll just go with some personnel changes, and I think first and foremost I would put Martinez at left back and bring in Varane. I don't really.
Hmm.
I mean, I really don't like Harry Maguire, but they don't really have any other center backs, so I guess I'd go with Varane and Maguire as your center back pairing. We'll shift Martinez out to the left, and then I don't know who would play right back. I mean, Dallo, maybe Wan-Bissaka. It's tough, and then I don't. I mean, it's tough too because I don't really like Ronaldo's attitude, but he is a goal scorer. So I struggle with that. But I'd also, I guess, just put in some younger players. Alanga played last year a decent amount,
Hmm.
and he's pretty good. Maybe some of these younger players will kind of go out there and show the hunger that some of the senior players haven't. So besides changing the formation, I would change that whole defense around because the defense looks terrible. Martinez just is probably too short to play, center back in this league, but I think he would be a solid left back. And then, I mean, I feel like they bought some defensive players after one good year. Like Wan-Bissaka had that amazing year at Palace, and they bought him, and he hasn't really lived up to that.
Hmm.
Maguire had a couple good years at Leicester, and they bought him, and Maguire's pace has been kind of, it shows through how slow he is, and he hasn't been as good. So I would just kind of try to mix up this defense and throw in some younger players on the team. Maybe take Ronaldo out. That's what I would do. Besides tactical stuff, which I think you're going to talk about.
Well, I mean, I think you could also look at players. They do have Lindelof and Baye must be like awful trainers because like
Yeah,
never
they must be because they never play.
never to be picked. I think like they actually did look okay in preseason, and I think Martial was maybe a bigger part of that than maybe we realized.
Mhm.
Martial was actually a really big player for them in that bubble stretch when they did get second.
Yeah,
So maybe getting him back will help a little bit. Again, it comes down to they don't have a defensive midfielder. So like I know they were targeting Frankie De Jong. It looks like they're going to lose him to Chelsea. Maybe try playing Martinez there instead. I feel like
yeah,
because Arsenal were trying to get this guy too. There's no way everyone was trying to spend 60 million for a 5'8" center back. I can't imagine that. So I think Arteta had the idea of playing him as a defensive midfielder. I'm assuming he played there at some point for Ajax or played there at Ajax, which Ten Hag would have seen. So I would go
Mhm.
with that. And really, like the issue is Harry Maguire. So I think maybe a way to mask that is to try back three. We've seen that with England. Harry Maguire isn't terrible when he plays for England, even though he's still not great. And when he was at Leicester, they I think they were playing a back three before he moved to United. So I'd maybe like to maybe see that. That could be a way to kind of mask a little bit. Maybe you can
Yeah,
play.
definitely.
You don't necessarily have to play a high line. I mean, you're not gonna be a team that has possession. It seems so. You just have to live with that. Uh,
Mhm.
Maybe and also a back three would help out someone like De Gea, to be honest, because
Yeah.
De Gea needs issues with his distribution. Um, and I actually liked what I saw out of Valencia. I know you don't want to start people right away, but I thought Valencia was better than Shaw when he came on. Again, 4-0, so it's hard to say into that. But
Yeah.
part of me wants to think if you understand. I mean, it's so early, so you can't necessarily give up on the season. But I'm thinking back to what Arteta did when he took over for Arsenal. Like he immediately stopped playing Ozil. Um, when he had issues with Aubameyang, he kind of shipped him out. It might be time to kind of do that with United if Ronaldo. I mean, with Ronaldo, if Ronaldo is
I
not
think
going
so.
to going to press because
Mhm.
he's the main guy. And so if young people see, or if anyone on the team sees Ronaldo is able to get away with it, they're not going to follow suit either. Uh,
Yeah, it just worries me too that he doesn't want to be there. So I just feel like
yes, and I think
he's not going to
that's
do enough to help the team.
and I think that is maybe hurt morale in that club too.
Mhm.
Um,
Oh yeah,
you can maybe try to play Van de Beek in midfield to try to have he'd be an outlet to try to keep the ball with possession. So you could maybe try this 3-5-2 that we've seen Brentford do and maybe Chelsea do. That way you'd have three in midfield still. Um,
Mhm.
the only issue is like you just don't have necessarily the wing backs yet. But yeah, it's definitely a little bit more of an experiment than I guess I was expecting. I think I said sixth to start the year, even though I was kind of expecting De Gea to struggle. Just maybe not
Yeah,
necessarily this much, but and they do have some young players. I know Iqbal and Paleschi have at least impressed in the preseason, so maybe it'll be time to kind of move them in. But another thing I want to mention is Jeremy thinks this idea of shipping managers in and out is kind of foolish because the problem is more on the football directing side, and it doesn't
Mhm.
seem they have someone that's competent at that role. United having the
Yeah.
biggest wage bill in Europe is shocking to me. I
Mhm.
mentioned De Gea; it's like all of them. That is a real issue. And it just seems like they recruiting and scouting over the years. I mean, why did you bring Martinez and other than you knew him from Ajax? Why are you targeting Anthony, also at Ajax? It maybe Ten Hag can't necessarily do this by himself, and he really shouldn't. Klopp isn't in charge of player recruitment. Klopp just coaches the team. They had Michael Edwards, and now they have Julian someone, uh, Julian Ward. But I feel like that's maybe an issue. So and like just the midfield just really is non-existent, and you can't. I mean, the reason why we get on Fred and McTominay is you can't pass them the ball. They can't collect
Yeah.
it. It's a
Yeah.
turnover every time. So
And you can't lose the ball there. It's going to be a chance because you're
no,
so deep.
and because you're in the middle of the field as well. Yeah,
Mhm. Yeah.
and so
Yeah. They have some problems for sure. A lot of problems to sort through.
and hey, they only have Liverpool coming up next after Liverpool not having the best couple of nights. So we'll see. Honestly that could be a must-win game for
I do.
United. So we'll see.
I do real quick. I do want to kind of pick your brain real fast on what do you think what's going on with Rashford's form? And I have the last four seasons his goal and assist totals. So in 2018-19 he had 13 goals and 11 assists.
Mhm.
In 1920 he had 22 goals, 12 assists. In 2021 he had 21 goals, 15 assists. And then last season 21-22, 5 goals, 2 assists. So just a precipitous drop off there. You went from 21 goals, 15 assists to 5 goals, 2 assists in 1 year. Is that like the manager change? Is that tactical changes? Is
Uh,
he just low on confidence? What's going on? You think?
well, that one like real good year. Him, Pogba, and Martial were working really well together. So I don't know if maybe Ronaldo coming in has kind of changed that. I do know he's had a
Yeah,
lot of injuries, and one thing
yeah, that's it.
Jeremy actually brought this up too with me. He was like, "Do you think Sterling would have had the same kind of career path had Sterling not gone to someone like Pep? Had Sterling been at
Hmm.
pure counter-attacking side? Because it seems Marcus Rashford has relied on his pace the whole time, and maybe
Yeah,
all these injuries have gotten to him where he doesn't know how to do anything other than try to kick the ball upfield and try to run.
yeah.
Um,
If he loses his pace, he loses his number one
yes,
go
he
to
loses a lot.
ability.
Yeah, and I feel like
Mhm. Good
he's
point.
maybe stagnated by not developing that technical side. And so I do kind of worry about him. But I mean,
Yeah,
that
me
said,
too.
he looked. I don't think he's necessarily the problem. I thought he actually looked pretty good in that second half versus Brighton. He didn't score, but he got into pretty good chances. But that is something worth talking about because I mean that is a pretty serious drop off, and I think
Yeah.
it's a big enough drop off where I mean he used to be just as much as Harry Kane on the England squad. I don't think he is now.
No, I mean, I would definitely have him falling down the England pecking order for sure because you got a lot of other players that are producing a lot more right now.
Yeah. And so we're going to move on to Man City and Bournemouth. And Man City went 4-0. It's not terribly that surprising. But one thing I do want to talk about is, because this was kind of discussed a lot, is Erling Haaland didn't necessarily have the best game, though I'm going to maybe argue he had a fine game, basically. Uh, but people were getting on his touches. I think he only had 8 touches. He only had 2 passes, one being an assist, one being
Yeah.
a pass on the kickoff. I mean, I'll just kind of pick your brain first. Do you think this is something that maybe City fans should kind of concern themselves? Do they think, hold on, this is going to be maybe this isn't the German league. Not everyone's going to give you space behind. Not everyone's going to beat West Ham. They are going to face some teams where they do kind of back you in. Klopp calls it anti-football. I call it Pulis football. Um,
Yeah.
but I mean, what are your thoughts on this?
Oh, I honestly I wouldn't be worried at all. The fact that he had an assist on only 2 passes kind of speaks to he doesn't necessarily need a lot of volume to contribute to goals and assists, especially just with everyone behind him: Foden, De Bruyne, Mahrez, Gundogan. You also have Grealish out there at times, so I think it'll be fine. I think it was just one of those games where maybe Bournemouth was like, we got to pick our poison here. Let's try to shut down
Yes.
Haaland, and other people will step up and score. And then the next weekend it could be a team's going to try to shut down their creative midfield players like De Bruyne, Foden, and then Haaland's going to score a boatload. So I wouldn't be worried. I think it was just a tactical thing that Bournemouth was kind of aiming to take Haaland out of the game.
Yep.
And the fact that he still got an assist on 2 passes is, I mean, I would take something from that. Kind of says he doesn't need, a bulk of possession or bulk of play to provide, which is awesome. So I wouldn't be worried. I think it just proves that now Pep has even more options with a couple now fewer strikers. So I wouldn't be worried about it. But I do wonder if he will hold up because he did get hurt a decent amount in the Bundesliga, and we know
That's a fair
Premier League's
critique.
a little bit more physical.
Hmm.
So that's what I'm kind of worried about. But so far I think Pep's been managing his minutes pretty good. He's been taking them out. I mean, they've been on cruise control City too, so that's going to help in the
Yep.
long run. So, but yeah, I wouldn't be concerned. Not a lot of touches, but he still provided an assist.
I'd argue he plays a role in all 3 goals. So you mentioned the assist to Gundogan. It's not necessarily the best touch, but he's strong enough to muscle in a ball to Gundogan. He knows the Gundogan's making the runs. Gundogan does like a 1-2. For the second goal, City go long in a way they don't always do, and Holland is big enough where it forces two Bournemouth guys to basically try to head the ball off him, and City are able to win that head. I think it goes to Rodri. Rodri gets it to Foden. Foden gets it to Kevin De Bruyne. But again, Holland makes a run that forces Bournemouth guys to basically, take notice of him, and that allows De Bruyne to dribble all the way up without anyone closing down on him. And then
Yeah,
on the third
you
goal,
don't you don't want
on the
that.
third goal
If
with
you-
Foden, uh, Kevin De Bruyne is free again. This time on the left side, he's able to wait and he's able to give the ball to Foden, making like a late run. But the reason why Foden is able to do this, and the reason why I forget who number 5 is, but number 5 is late to react to Foden, and basically
like,
you see him do a slide tackle, and I think he gets contact on the ball. Uh, so it just that second delay is what creates the goal, and the reason is he is so worried about Holland behind him that he's waiting instead of running to Foden. And another thing you heard Pep actually say after the game is he was actually upset at Foden early
yeah,
in the game before anyone scored because Foden was through on goal and he had almost like the FIFA pass. He had like the square pass to Holland, and he instead tried to basically take the shot on himself. And Pep basically said, "You need to remember, Holland's going to be there every time." And he even said that maybe in the past, false nine or whatever, someone wouldn't be in that space, but Holland is going to be
yeah.
there every time. And so he's going to get so many goals this way. It's not going to be pretty. I think Holland will be the least sexy like 20 goal scorer because a lot of these will be tap ins and from cutbacks.
Mhm.
Uh, so I don't
Yeah.
know. That's kind of just have all I have to say about City. It does look like they might lose Silva. We've mentioned that a couple times. They're linked to maybe the guy I want for Liverpool, Mateus Nunes, but Wolves are apparently linked to him as well. Uh, but
Yeah. Portuguese link there for Wolves.
And I guess another thing to say is it was interesting that Grealish did not start this game. Foden did, and then for reasons, Pep said it wasn't tactical or anything. It wasn't like a sub. Pep played Grealish in the second half, but I think City are better when Foden's on that left side. But
Yeah, I do too.
I guess that's it. I'm gonna City winning 4-0. Boo.
Yeah, it
this
was just another cruise control game
the
for them.
way we're going, City might be on cruise control for the league. Um,
Yeah.
but maybe not. So let's get into Arsenal and Leicester. This game ends 4-2. Uh, some really nice goal. Well, the first goal is really nice by Gabriel Jesus.
Oh, yeah.
He gets the second one from basically like a close distance header. Then Leicester get one back with a Saliba own goal. Um, Arsenal immediately respond with a shocker goal. And then maybe like the best play that Leicester had is Madison gets Leicester again only within one goal after a really nice play by Iheanacho, and it's short lived because Martinelli is able to score again. And one thing I just want to throw up is I think it's a really good game. One for Arsenal to showcase just how good they can be, because
Mhm.
they have three forward players that they're all match winners essentially, and it seems they're all comfortable basically playing at every part of the pitch. Maybe not Saka, but it seems Martinelli and Jesus can kind of switch, and Jesus had 15 touches in the opponent's box. That is wild. But I want to say, like, before throwing it out to you, is a bit like with Palace. This maybe could have gone against them because Leicester were able to get a couple goals back and make it a one goal game after Arsenal had basically dominated the entire time. And
Yeah.
instead of lulling or maybe allowing that to get to them, they had a response every single time. So I'll just kind of throw it out to you. I mean, who maybe stood out to you as or who impressed you, or what are your thoughts just on this game?
Well, yeah. What you touched on real quick, I think, is what Arteta will be most happy about is the resiliency to come back and score, like just a few minutes after getting scored on. So that is already a really good mentality to have. But someone you didn't mention that really impressed me was Zinchenko. I thought he was amazing with possession. He made
Mhm.
some really, really good moves, some really, really good passes. When he was taken off, the fans kind of gave him a standing ovation. I thought he was amazing. And then the other thing, weirdly, was Saliba scored an own goal, and he's been playing so well that the fans didn't really care. They kind of just like clapped and kind of urged him on because he's been playing so well. And Arteta after the game was kind of like, I've never really seen that. Usually, the fans are mad after an own goal, but Saliba's been playing so well that they were kind of like, he had to kind of go for it, and it was just unlucky. And
Yeah,
that's good to see
I
from the
think
Arsenal fans because
I
they,
actually think
they
this
can be
was
kind of toxic. So,
I think this was a really good play by him, even though it's an own goal, because you don't see defenders keep up with Vardy that often. So for him to show that kind of pace, it's going to be hard to get in behind on Arsenal's back line with Saliba in. So
and he
I
had to
think that's a
kind of
great
make
shout.
an intervention. It was just unlucky. So it was good to see the fans pick him up after a mistake. And I mean, yeah, the Saka not really the best game. Odegaard maybe not the best game either. But like you said, when you have other options like Martinelli and Jesus, they can kind of pick up the slack because other games it might be Martinelli and Jesus don't play well, and Saka and Odegaard would kind of pick it up.
Yes.
And then lastly, though, just happy that Tomiyasu came back from injury and made a cameo appearance. Tierney too, another cameo appearance from last week's,
Hmm.
and then Smith Rowe too is looking like he might be coming back to health. So a lot of good things, a lot of positive things to take from Arsenal. But I'm not happy that we gave up 2 goals. But offensively, it was amazing. It's like night and day with last year at this time. So I'm happy. It was fun to see, and I'm glad some of these players are coming back from injury too, are getting some minutes under their belt and getting back to full health.
So I think what you just said is really, really key. I don't even know if you realized it, but you mentioned if one Saka can have a bad game, maybe Jesus will step up, or maybe Martinelli will
Mm,
step up. And hearing that is I think of 2017, 2018, 2019 Liverpool because that's what Liverpool had in
mm,
Firmino, Mane, and Salah. They could.
mm.
There was never a day in that whole stretch where all three had bad games, and if there was, Liverpool
Right.
lost.
Yeah.
It would always be one or the other, or maybe all three. But that's the reason why
Mm.
having a front three so dynamic is so important. Not a lot of teams have this. So
Yeah. Yeah, because Liverpool didn't Mane go through a stretch where he wasn't scoring,
Yes.
but everything was fine because he was providing, but Salah was kind of picking up the slack.
Hmm. Yep. And the reason why they struggled in that COVID year when they were losing Van Dijk, but Firmino and Salah and Mane had slumps, and only Salah was able to pick up the slack. So, yeah,
Mhm.
if you're Arsenal, there's a lot of promise and hope right now. And it seems you mentioned Tomiyasu coming back. Maybe the Ben White thing was only just an experiment, or not. But it just seems Arteta have so many options now. We haven't even seen Fabio Vieira come in yet, and
Yep.
this is a guy I really want to see because I wanted him at Liverpool. Um,
Yeah, I think he
and
might make the bench next game. I think he's coming back too. So
so I think what's another thing that's kind of cool, just because we should mention All or Nothing's out for people that maybe haven't seen it yet. It's definitely enjoyable, and I recommend it. But I think it's kind of cool that Arsenal did what I guess other teams maybe wouldn't have done is, and maybe by getting someone so young, or I guess because he was like Pep's protege, maybe they kind of forced themselves to do this, but they've stuck with him when maybe they didn't
mhm.
have to. Two seasons in a row, I think they got eighth. Things were maybe stagnating. He was having issues with players. Ozil, Aubameyang last year. He started off. It started off 3 losses last year, and I think one of them was like 5-0 to City. And it just seems they've been rewarded by going through the growing pains, and it's maybe something for United to look at as something to think about with Ten Hag. So
And they've been backed financially too. They spent a lot of
they
money
have.
the last two transfer windows. So yeah, that's something United owners could do too to help Ten Hag. It kind of mirrors the situation a little bit. I think United are still in a slightly bigger mess than Arsenal was. Just more big contracts that they need to figure out because the players with the big contracts not performing. But yeah, there's definitely similarities there, and I think it's really important to be backed financially. You got to back your manager with the players he wants. You got to bring him in.
And just to kind of touch on Leicester, I mean, I don't know about you, but I am starting to be a little worried. I'm definitely worried about Rodgers' job. But I mean, you look at the starting 11; it doesn't make sense for them to struggle, to be honest. So
Yeah,
the
yeah, I would
one
agree.
really the one player they're missing is Schmeichel isn't there anymore, and Schmeichel wasn't just their keeper; he was also their captain. And I'm
Yeah.
wondering if maybe they're missing his voice on the field to kind of keep them organized or to pick their spirits up. But it just seems
Mhm.
something isn't right. And I don't know if maybe there so many players are linked to go out the door. Maybe that's kind of been a disruption too. One of the players is linked to Arsenal, and he didn't actually have the best game in Tielemans.
Yeah, Tillman's, yeah.
Yeah, just kind of touch on that. I mean, frankly, just as a neutral, I'm starting to love this fixture. I don't know if it's because a lot of the Leicester players since like winning that title in I guess 2015 have already been linked to Arsenal. Like I thought one year Vardy was going to go, and then like Madison was going to go.
Madison,
Now it
maybe,
is
yeah.
Tielemans. So and it's it's a fun game for neutrals. It's never really a 0-0. So
Yeah.
want
Yeah,
to tip.
Leicester tend to score goals even if they're conceding a bunch.
So I'll tip my hat for Arsenal making this entertaining. Um, and I guess we'll kind of move on from there. I mean, another thing I want to kind of put out with Leicester is it's kind of weird we aren't seeing Rogers play Vardy and Ian Nacho together, or Vardy or Ian Nacho and Daka together. We saw that a little
Mhm.
bit in the second half, but he's like playing Vardy as like the lone striker with like Madison underneath, and I feel like the only one making runs is Vardy. And
Yeah.
so
And Vardy's getting up there in age too. It'd be nice to have, a ready-made replacement and Iheanacho just getting more playing time and more experience. Because we saw him, 2 years ago? He scored like, I feel like he scored like 8 goals in 10 games or something, 6 goals in
he was
in
really
eight
good.
games,
He
something.
was really good
Yeah,
when
something
Vardy
like
was
that.
hurt. Yeah.
Hmm.
And it's insane how quickly things can change because Leicester missed out on the
Yeah.
top four by just a point or so, basically 2 years in a row. I mean, they were top two at Christmas. I think 2 years in a row as well. And if you
Mhm.
do fear maybe they've missed their chance, but it's wild because the squad hasn't necessarily changed, but it's not like these players are over 30. In Didi, Tielemans, Madison, they're probably in their mid 20s now. So
Yeah.
it's
Besides Vardy,
only
yeah,
Vardy, yeah.
mhm.
So maybe a victim of their own success in some ways, but I do kind of fear for Rodgers. So
Yeah, me too. Me too. Because they have some high aims, and I just don't think they're gonna. So far, I don't think they're gonna achieve those.
and moving on to Liverpool Palace, we can maybe skip this. It's kind of tongue in cheek. I don't want to go on a massive rant, but this does go 1-1. Goals from Zaha and Luis Diaz. Luis Diaz really out of nowhere. Uh, because basically the story of the game is Darwin does get a red card, and there was discussion all week on, I guess, like the Liverpool accounts I follow on Twitter. They were like, Darwin Núñez must start. It can't be Roberto Firmino, no matter what.
Mhm.
But this is maybe the reason why Klopp was kind of waiting him in. He didn't start versus City in the uh, uh, Community Shield, and he didn't start versus Fulham. And he brought him on as a sub. Maybe it's less stressful. But it's just he
Yeah.
loses his head. It seems like the center back Anderson is kind of goading him a little bit, but he had two misses in that first half that I think he was just really upset about. But it's just one of those things, young player, new league, and he also doesn't necessarily speak. I think he's learning English, so it's all new to him. So this is maybe just what you can expect, maybe with some growing pains. But another issue was Firmino wasn't able to play because apparently he picked up something in training. Joe Gomez was
Mm.
expected to start because Matip picked up something, and instead he picked up something where he had his minutes restricted. So it was like Nat Phillips that was given the start, and boy did we saw that see how that backfired uh, for the Zaha goal, and so injuries have already starting to affect them. I think they have like 11 injuries in the first team, and I don't people are like thinking about like conspiracy wise, but they didn't they went a stretch last year where they played every game on their schedule that they were allowed to. So
Mhm.
they had no break. It's a shorter like preseason break than in the past because of the because of the World Cup start, and
Yep.
they haven't done enough to freshen up the squad. And I think we're seeing that we're seeing their bodies give out. But a squad that's starting James Milner in midfield and Nat Phillips is not a team that's going to challenge City for the title. I'm just going to say that. So maybe top four is now in the cards, and I guess that I guess makes the top four race a little more interesting, and more crowded. But yeah, I mean it's rotten luck for Joe Gomez. He came on in the second half and did look good, but I guess
Yeah.
he had a
Definitely.
minutes restricted. But the thing I want to guess get out is we've already seen now two games where missing Thiago is showing up, but another player I want to mention is a season ago they decided to move on from Gini Ronaldo, and people are wondering, well, why is Fabinho all of a sudden rubbish, and why is he kind of getting that run in midfield? Well, it's because Gini Ronaldo was the engine of that midfield for like 5 years. He never missed a game.
Mhm.
He was Mr. Reliable. And he wasn't the sexiest player in the world, even though anytime a team tried to press him, he was amazing. He would always get out. He'd always wiggle out of room somehow. But he didn't necessarily have the goals or assists or the great passing. But he was a rock in that midfield. And what you're seeing now is Liverpool do not have the bodies to be physical. They're struggling to win.
Mhm.
They're struggling to turn people over with their pressing, and they're not winning second balls because they're just not. Harvey Elliott is like 5'8". He's not going to bully anyone. He's going to get bullied essentially. And the idea of playing Fabio Cavello, maybe in that left spot instead, he's going to get bullied too. So
Yeah.
not not addressing that. This is the reason why they were linked to someone like Chouameni, and this is the reason why not getting him is so hard is hurting. There's a reason why they're linked to Jude Bellingham, and the reason why not getting him is hurting him. So it's an issue. The midfield's an issue. Midfield is a concern. They play United next week, and Firmino is probably going to be 50-50. You're not going to have Darwin because of that red card. So
Yeah. No Darwin. Yeah.
the only positives is Luis Diaz, after going down in man, turned in like 2019 Sadio Mane versus like Barcelona, in that second leg where he was a one man team. He was amazing, and and I guess another positive is he's been getting close to these. He had a great shot versus Fulham that bounced off the post. He had a wonderful shot versus Chelsea in the FA final that hit the post. He's been getting close on these like kind of like crazy shots. So hopefully maybe this is a start of something new.
Yeah.
So and I guess another thing I want to say before we're like trying to move on is in week one it was the oldest starting 11 in EPL. And do you know who number one is or the youngest?
Who the youngest team is?
Yeah. at least for
Oh,
week one.
it's probably Arsenal,
It
right?
was Arsenal. And
Yeah.
Arsenal, I think, was like under 24, and Liverpool was, I think, was 29. And one thing to bring up
Hmm.
with like the All or Nothing is in the first episode when they're rebuilding the team, they mentioned the profiles, they mentioned the age, and they're all under 24, and they did that intentionally.
Yeah.
And I think that's a proper way to do some squad building. So,
Yeah.
fortunately, Liverpool's owners don't see it that way. And
Yeah, and they have some injury-prone players that could help, like Keita, maybe could help out in
Stunt,
midfield, but we don't know because he's
Stunt.
injury-prone.
He played Milner over Keita. I don't.
Mhm.
They I keep saying they need to go get this guy Mateus Nunes to play over Henderson. Maybe Klopp wouldn't even play. Maybe Klopp would still play Henderson over. It seems Milner or Henderson have to play. Um,
Yeah, yeah, it does, done it.
it's wild. And to touch on Palace, this is once again another sign for Arsenal that that win last week is a good result for you guys. Because Palace can be dangerous, and it's not
I think
even
so, yeah.
it's not even the best Palace yet because Michael Olise isn't still ready for fitness.
Mhm.
Palace can break and be dangerous. I mean, that finish by Zaha is world class.
Yeah, it was a great finish.
Because
Yeah, and Chris Richards too, possibly starting to
yeah,
stake his claim as a starting center back and see if just coming off the bench. So yeah, I think Palace is going to be a tough out every time you play him too. They were kind of like that last year with Vieira. I thought maybe losing Gallagher would kind of hurt them, but I still think they're going to be a tough out. They're a good team.
and so moving on to this was a sneaky good. Might have to speed this up. This was a sneaky good game with Aston Villa and Everton. So it's Gerard versus Lampard again, and I kind of labeled it the Luca Digna derby. And I did that before Digna actually had an own goal. Uh, first goals from Ings, then Buendia, and Digna own goal, and yeah, it ends 2-1. Um, it was a big bounce week for both teams. It felt like both teams didn't necessarily have the best performance in the first week. Villa are the ones smiling after this, but neither team, I would say, made a statement. One thing I will say is it was interesting. Gerard did make some changes, one being Ollie Watkins, and we saw
Mhm.
really for both goals how important he is with his runs.
Yep.
John McGinn wins the ball off. I think it's McNeil. He kicks the ball upfield, and it's really just a ball to nowhere. It's just a ball to the corner that Watkins is able to run on, and James Falkowski is too late to kind of he's so worried about Watkins' pace. He doesn't close
Mhm.
off, so he allows Watkins to dribble into the box, and Watkins does a nice job to find Ings. And then on the second goal, uh, Buendia has the ball, and Watkins makes a decision to make a. He starts on the left side, and he runs to the right, and then he bends his run. It's a really nice find by Buendia, and then Watkins does what Phil Foden didn't, and what Harry Kane didn't, and he squares he doesn't try to beat the keeper from a tight angle. He squares the ball to Buendia, and it's a tap in. So I call it a FIFA goal because if I'm playing FIFA, it's what I always did. Because I
Yeah.
was never really good at anything else, but I was really good at that square pass. But I mean, that's just kind of I mean, I guess one thing to say about Villa is unfortunately maybe one of the headlines is Coutinho was taken out, and Buendia did come on. And I don't know, Rex, do you feel maybe going forward it might be better to play Buendia than Coutinho? It did seem they played better in
Yeah.
that second half.
Yeah, it's weird. I thought Buendia last year, his first year at Villa, I thought he was really going to put up a bunch of assists, and he kind of struggled. So maybe it's a bounce back year for him, and I mean maybe he'll be the starter, and Coutinho will be coming off the bench. But either way, it's a good situation to have
Yes.
two really good, guys that can assist really well. To kind of either mix up or just have fresh legs come in off the bench, either Coutinho or Buendia, and that was kind of the case here with Buendia off the bench. Fresh legs thrown right into the mix really helped out. And I mean, I do think Villa have a lot of good players that they can kind of rotate in and out. Douglas Luiz didn't even play; he's a good player.
Yes.
Cameron Archer didn't play; he's a good player, young good player. But so they have a lot of depth, a lot of options. So I really felt like last week they kind of underachieved, and maybe this will kind of right the ship because they do have a lot of players, a lot of talented players to kind of finish closer to mid table, maybe even a little higher.
Yeah, and Ramsey would maybe be another. But
Ramsey, yeah.
to move on to Everton for a second. Really, it was a horror show. I want to say for the first 70 minutes. I don't think they had. I think they maybe had one shot on goal from maybe Damari Gray testing Martinez. But to his credit, Lampard did finally make a few changes. And so the first half, they had 4 shots and nothing target. In the second half, they had 11 shots and 4 on target. And I feel like it was maybe the first example where I think having 5 subs actually finally did show up and change. It'll maybe show how some managers will benefit from this immensely. And so finally we saw we saw a striker for Everton to kind of hit something over the top to. You said they were playing Anthony Gordon and it just was not working. Rondon came on and actually changed the game. We kind of joked about it last week, but he was good. And another player to talk about is Onana came on and didn't have the best start with his debut. He gets caught. He gets caught on the ball, and that's what leads to Villa's second goal. But almost immediately after that, I want to say within minutes, he showed his skill to run down the touchline and he does a quick cutback, and it kind of fools everyone because he's like 6'4". But he's got really clever feet for how big he is.
Yeah.
And he's going to be an interesting signing for them. And he helped to basically create the goal to make it 2-1 and to make it interesting. And I want to say that final 10 minutes was chaotic as hell. Villa was going long, and Rondon was doing really well to like rin balls in the air and to knock it down to places. And it forced some pretty good saves out of Martinez. So Martinez did well to keep Villa with the points. But for the first time, you saw Everton fans at least have something to kind of hold on to. So we'll see there's still time for them to do some business. We saw Connor Cody come in. Him and Tarkowski might have some time to work out because they didn't do great on either goal. But weirdly, a player that worked out or that was good for them was Holgate. Holgate had a lot of really nice long balls. So once they got Rondon on, they kind of changed everything. And maybe the one negative, we mentioned Godfrey and Mina being out. They did lose. It looks like Decore for maybe a muscle injury. So.
Yeah, they can't use that for sure.
Onana is going to immediately come into the squad, it seems.
Yeah, and I kind of was going to text you guys and be like, I don't know if Everton's going to score, at all this year because they have an own goal, but none of their players have scored. Yeah, none of their players have scored yet. I know we're only 2 games in, but still really don't have a striker. Dele Alli, I don't think is that great. He's coming off the bench. He's kind of past his prime, maybe. So I don't know. They're always going to struggle to score goals. So they really have to play defensive soccer and just try to hang around games and maybe claw and scratch a goal out and scratch results out until they can kind of get some better players in or maybe get Dominic Calvert-Lewin healthy.
Well, that really is it. We don't know how long he's going to be out. It can't just be Rondon, so they have to go get someone.
Yeah, it can't be Rondon.
I think they've been linked to Michy Batshuayi, I believe.
Oh, okay, that'd be a decent signing.
But if Chelsea's going after Gordon, I say you're not touching this kid unless we get Broja. Broja would be interesting there. So.
Yeah, that would work potentially.
So let's move on to Saints and Leeds United. This actually ends 2-2, and it was starting to be kind of rough for Hasenhüttl. You didn't know if it was going to be another 4-0 Spurs moment. But again, this is another time where a couple subs in the second half really did change the game. So it starts off with 2 goals by Rodrigo, and then new boy Joe Aribo gets a goal, and then Kyle Walker-Peters gets the second goal in basically the last minute. But the guy to talk about is substitute Siko Mar. I don't know if you saw this goal, but this guy looked good, really good. It's a fantastic through ball, but what he does is he bodies off a defender, basically on like a 50-50 ball, but then he does like a drag back or he does like a spin around to get another guy, and then he has the pass. And then, he almost had a chance to win the game. He did a nice cutback and had a shot that was saved. But this guy might be someone to follow, I guess. Southampton and Hasenhüttl are always good at finding these players in the French league or somewhere else. I think this guy was at Bordeaux for 5-10 million and make him into things. And so this guy has maybe caught my eye. So I don't know, Rex. Do you have anything to say about this game?
Yeah, actually, Tyler Adams, USA player, I think he was the player to cover the most ground in the Premier League this week. So good to see the Americans playing, and Aronson obviously is partnered with them. both played the full 90, so that's always good. We need our USA players starting games and playing more,
Yes.
especially since some Turner on the bench and Pulisic not really playing that much. So it's good to see US players playing the full 90 in the Premier League.
More
You got a lot of them.
Have trust in Aronson as well.
Yeah, and it's been pretty good so far. Adams is doing a really good job. Aronson kind of unlucky not to get credit with the goal last week, so it's been good so far. I know they dropped points here, kind of blew it after they had a 2-0 lead, but still, I think early days and good stuff. I think so far from Leeds.
Yeah, I think if there's maybe one negative is Leeds had 133 passes completed, Southampton had 121. I don't necessarily know if you can do that for a full season because there's a lot of running without the ball. And another thing we should maybe mention is, I mentioned how in that Chelsea Spurs game, there was a lot of talk about Havertz was fouled on a challenge where it seemed the guy had to basically go through the player to get the ball. We saw basically the carbon copy thing in this game, and what's kind of stunning is had the ref decided to make this a foul, I think it would have been a red card. Llorente is completely beaten and brings down I think it was Stuart Armstrong. And it almost looks like the same thing. I think he has to go through the player to get the ball, even though he does get the ball. But they didn't call it, so maybe it's just how the league's going to be this year. I don't know, but I just wanted to get that out there.
Good point.
And then we had Brighton versus Newcastle. This ended 0-0, and all this talk about Newcastle last week. They followed up with 4 shots total, 1 on goal. Only 230 passes. They really couldn't create anything at all. And when your goalie is the keeper, is the player of the game, that's usually not the best sign. And I feel like this was a week where like everything just got back to normal. Brighton underperformed their XG because I think Brighton had like a 1.5 XG. They don't score a goal. And Nick Pope masterclass. That to me is Barclays Premier League. So
yeah, I would agree.
I mean, do you have anything to say about Newcastle or Brighton?
No, it wasn't the best of games, but if you are a Brighton fan, I think the performances of Caicedo so far in midfield or something to look forward to for sure. So
yeah, and a guy that kind of came on in the second half, and Brighton's kind of the same way where they're good at like just finding like these random players out of nowhere.
Yeah, they are.
And another guy is Mitoma, who came in. I think he's from like the Japanese league. He came on and he turned Kieran Trippier a few times where he actually created a couple really good looks that just Brighton couldn't finish. But he might be someone to maybe watch going forward.
Yeah.
And then we have I guess I got fun with the names because I called this the Battle of the Hams. Nottingham Forest and West Ham. And this ends 1-0 with Tyler O'Rani getting the goal. And for this only being 1-0, this game had a lot. This was a pretty good appetizer for the Chelsea Spurs game because you had a PK save. You had basically both teams had a goal ruled out. You had basically chaos. I think West Ham hit the crossbar or post 2 times as well. I mean, this was fun. This was fun for the neutral, and the crowd was awesome. So
yeah, crowd was amazing.
I'll throw it up to you, Rex. What did you like about this game, or what were your thoughts?
Yeah, my thoughts were it's actually good to have Nottingham Forest back in the league because the crowd was amazing. And I think, they've bought, 15 new players this year, maybe even 16 now. So, it's good to see the owner is at least, splashing out money and at least backing Steve Cooper, at least, which is good to see. But I do wonder, how the team is going to mesh with all those new signings.
Yes.
But this was a great game for him, I think. Part of me wonders is it just because they had that huge crowd behind them after being out of the Premier League for so long? It's their first Premier League game at home, so the crowd definitely played a factor. So I wonder, if the crowd can kind of maintain that every home game, which I think they probably will be able to. But yeah, I think it was a great win. It was kind of a different Forest from last week too. They look kind of toothless. Yeah, they look a lot better. I think starting Owoni kind of helped because he's a solid player. Lingard too was looking better. So I think we're gonna be in for a pretty good Forest season. I do think they'll probably they'll have their up and downs as most newly promoted teams do. but looks like they're going to have the players to be able to kind of switch things up and maybe get them out of rough patches. With just a lot of 15 new signings. I think maybe in 16 now. They're going to have like Kuyate's coming in.
Yep.
Who else did they get? They got someone good.
I think Emmanuel Dennis, Watford.
Yeah, Dennis.
So bringing on another striker, and I think Jeremy mentioned this. It's the best midfielder on Atalanta. I don't actually know
Freuler.
know who this guy is.
Yeah,
Freuler.
Yeah, they got him too. Yeah, he's been good too. He's a Swiss international. I think he's a starter for them. So yeah, that's another good signing. So we'll see how they gel. But
I watch a lot of football, but I don't watch a lot of Serie A. So
yeah.
my one fault. I mean, one player I wanted to kind of mention is I thought Nico Williams looked awesome this game. I don't know if it's the Liverpool connection or not. But he had a little Trent in him. I think he had the most touches on the team. He had a couple really nice crosses and deep balls that were just. I think they didn't necessarily amount to anything, but they were close. So if you're playing like fantasy or just someone you want to watch as fullbacks these days that can offer a little something offensively, that's going to be a good asset for them to get, and especially when he's replacing I think player of the season for them last year in Jed Spence. So that's great for Forest to at least maybe be secure in that. So, and then with West Ham, it's hard to say because West Ham actually had a goal ruled out. I kind of mentioned that because Antonio crashes into a player when basically all he had to do was screen him. It's Rice does a really good job to actually he does what I think he should do more of. He has a really nice final ball that Benrahma slots in, and then Rice misses a PK, and that's what everyone's going to talk about. But one thing I was shocked about is it's such a blatant handball because it stops a goal. I was shocked that wasn't a red card. I don't know if you actually saw this, but
I did. I think it was because they said it was because Henderson was right there behind him and probably would have saved it. I guess is why it wasn't a red.
Maybe. I mean, it's
that's the only thing I could think of.
It's blatant because it literally does prevent the goal. It's going in. I don't think Henderson's getting that. So yeah, West Ham maybe have some reason to gripe, and it's not the best start for you guys. But again, unlucky this game, you could say. It's not easy to start a season with City, and you actually get it out of the way, so you only have to play them once. But maybe
they kind of ran into a good goalkeeper too, playing well in Henderson.
Yeah, Henderson.
He made a couple really good saves.
Yeah.
So.
I think he was actually player of the game at least. Well, save the PK.
It's either him or O'Brien. I think O'Brien was really good too.
Yeah, Jeremy apparently really likes this guy. They got him.
I think O'Brien was man of the match. I think.
Well, you play well when you're man of the match over a keeper that saved the PK. So and that's actually a really good way to transitions. So the final game we have is Wolves and Fulham. This one ends 0-0, unfortunately, and is not a ton to get into. But Jose Sa does end up saving a PK, and a lot of people that saw Mitrovic play Liverpool, I think, switched him out for the fantasy. And he's the one that misses the PK.
Yeah.
So maybe a little bit of a wake-up call for Fulham.
Wolves, not a great PK either.
Wolves, I thought, were really good. Other than the final product, they had 7 shots. It looked like they had more. I think there were some blocks in there. They were able to get free in that first half. I think it could have been 3 or 4-0 in the first half. Just Neto had a couple one-on-ones that he messed up. Wang had a couple one-on-ones he messed up on. Adama was back in the second half. Maybe because Adama was back in, they decided to mirror his performances because Adama was really good at getting those one-on-ones and then not having the final.
But not doing anything. Yeah.
So it seems I still think Wolves are going to be fine, but them not having a striker because they're going to miss Jimenez for a little bit. I don't know if Wang's a striker, which he's trying right now. I don't know if they're going to try to get someone. They're linked to Mateus Nunes, which is keep your hands off him.
It's that Portuguese link that Wolves have is it could Kazlaga and a couple other players. So that could actually get them Nunes. That would be interesting to see, especially with, like you said, like possibly some of the bigger teams like Liverpool after him. So.
I mean, I think it would be a great signing for them. You see what they are able to do with Neves, and it looks like they finally moved on from Moutinho. I mean, you could fit you get Nunez with Neves, and that would be a pretty good. That would be a very good two in midfield because I think Nunez
Yeah.
can play deep and can do those over the top balls. But again,
Oh yeah.
they need a striker. They need someone to finish goals because if they don't, they turn into Brighton and they outperform their underperform their XG. And in a league where it does seem maybe wins are going to be more important than draws, that it could be interesting to see where Wolves are at sometime in December. Um,
Yeah.
so and with Fulham, and I guess they're signing Agridas was able to debut in the second half. Didn't do a whole lot,
Hmm.
but again, just debut. So
Yeah. He just
and
he just came over too.
and Fulham, it's more of one of those I guess wake up calls you could say. They only had 233 passes, and they didn't have a whole lot versus Liverpool either. I kind of
Yeah.
worry about the teams that aren't able to pass the ball a lot. I'm not talking about completed passes. The reason why is if you don't have the ball, you're doing a lot of running without it, and eventually
Oh
that
yeah.
shows up in the legs.
Yeah.
So
They don't necessarily have the deepest squad, Fulham, so
yeah,
that could definitely wear them out towards the middle of the year. Although the month off for the World Cup plays in now too, so some of those players will have like a month off to kind of get the energy back in the legs. So it's a really interesting season with that World Cup
that's
in the
that's
middle. I mean, we haven't seen it before, so
yeah.
it's going to be really interesting to see. Players are going to be tired if they play a lot in the World
Well,
Cup. Some players are going to be completely rested. It's weird.
one of the negatives maybe for Fulham that I guess other teams might not have. I don't think Forest is going to have a bunch. Well, you mentioned Farla. Forest is going to have a ton of actually Nico Williams and Brendan Johnson. Again, Forest is not a good example, but maybe like these bottom tubs aren't going to have people actually like starting a lot of games in the World Cup. Fulham is
Mm.
Mitrovic. I think starts for Serbia.
Oh yeah, he probably does. And then
So
Anthony Robinson too for USA, and maybe Paulinho too for Portugal.
oh yeah. So e we'll have to see about that. That's a great shout. So it just the season's going to be it's not going to be easy to predict. I was trying to say that when we were trying to do something 2 weeks ago because we got a little shock or something, and maybe the top four is going to be the same, but I think it's going to be topsy turvy in a way we haven't seen
Yeah,
before. And I also think
yeah,
it's more skilled than I've seen in the past. Everyone, for the most part, other than maybe Bournemouth, knows how to press and knows how to beat a press. Everyone seems to try to play football, try to play to feet. Maybe they're not great at it, but they try. So
Mhm.
yeah, I'm excited. Like I said, it wasn't. I was a little bit more excited before Monday, but that said, it's a good way to get the season started. And I guess one positives I guess with the World Cup is there's really not an international break. Like in the past, there was like 3 weeks, and then there was like an international break, and then when it got
Yeah.
to October, there was a
Hated
break.
it. Hmm.
I think it goes through to September, and then there'll be an international break until
Probably
October.
does.
So
Yeah,
we've got like a good 5, 6, 7 weeks of EPL weekends.
yeah. I used to hate those breaks because right when you get into the Premier League, there's that stupid break, and they're playing like international friendlies, which I don't really care about
The break
too.
would
So
the break would be like when I stopped like that would be when I like this would kill like fantasy football. I'd be like so
yeah.
excited to finally like, all right, I know how teams are going to play. I know how the debuts are going to do. I'm going to make all my changes. I'm going to do my wild card, and then I've got to wait 2 weeks before seeing it. Yeah, you don't check it again. So
And who knows if people are going to get hurt on international duty and be out, and or be just tired, and the manager might rest them their first club game back. So yeah, it's awesome. Get those out of here. I don't really like the World Cup in the winter, but I guess one of the positives is less international breaks. So
hmm yep. And so well, I guess we kind of actually were able to get through it. Like I said, I timed it out in the beginning. I thought I was pretty good, and then I was worried after the Liverpool thing because I wanted to talk for like 10 minutes, and I was like, I told you, dude.
well, yeah, we didn't need to spend much time either on the 0-0s, so we were able to speed it up there at least too.
There we go. We'll be like match of the day if you want us to talk about your team score.
Yeah, please. Yeah, we don't want to waste our time with 0-0s.
And well, next week Liverpool play United, and depending on the result, I might do the Alex route. I'll be like, we just won't do a show next week, or maybe I'll let Rex kind of host and just kind of let him
It
decide
could
where to
be a
go.
get well game for Liverpool the way United's playing. So we'll see.
I
But it
was
also is a United with their back against the wall. So
well,
who knows what that'll do to them.
it's that, and I don't like it. I would have been fine had Don Nunes played, especially for someone like Martinez at center back. I have a
Yeah,
feeling he's going to play for Harry Maguire. Um, yeah, I have a feeling maybe he will switch formations, but I don't even know if Firmino is going to be able to go. It might be like 5'6" Fabio Carvalho in that center striker spot. So maybe Salah and Diaz can kind of rescue something. We'll have to see. And
yeah. Seems like they're gonna have to.
so I guess that's it. So Rex, again, thank you for joining me. It's one of those where we're at a moment where you seem to be more excited about what your team is than I am. So,
Cautiously optimistic, I think,
but there
is
we
what
go.
I would. Yeah. So, but yeah, much better start than last year. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's true. I think at this point last year we were talking about that City game. So,
Yeah. And Arsenal were bottom of the table.
oh, that's right. I don't even think they'd even scored. So it's amazing
No, yeah,
what getting Sir Ramsdale was able to was able to do for you guys, or Tommy Yasa. Maybe that was it.
yeah, weird, really weird. Yeah.
So I guess that's it. So for Rex and I at the reserve squad, I guess I'll close out and say you guys stay squatty.
You say squatty.
All right, and stop recording.